the EdTech Coaches Podcast number 16, Open Mic Night. Welcome to the PSD EdTech Coaches podcast for educators by educators that love to equip teachers, ponder, and discuss current issues and climate in education. With your hosts, Dan Hopman and Steve Stuckey. Morning and good afternoon or good evening wherever you are. This is the Palmdale School District EdTech Coaches Podcast. I am one of your co-hosts, Steve Stuckey, here, and I'm here with my other co-host, Dan Hopman.
Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, everybody. I hope you had a great week. We came off of Teacher Appreciation Week, and hopefully you're looking forward to 3 weeks left of the school year.
3 weeks to go, but 8 weeks down, 8 long weeks that seem like 8 years worth of teaching.
It seems like it, to be honest, I know it's been long weeks, but it just seems like it's been a big flash kind of coming through because there's just been so much going on.
We're going to have quite a different show today because we had nothing really planned but some general questions, and we opened it up to an open mic, and right now we actually have 10 participants who decided to join us via Zoom to share their ideas with us, which will be great. But before that, we do have some things that I think Palmdale school teachers have to be aware of, and that has to be that, number one, your P2 report cards or progress reports need to be done. You have until Tuesday at 11:59 a.m., I believe, to get those finished, because they're going to open up the S2 report card time, and there will be some changes to those report cards that I know, Dan, you are going to be making a video for.
I am, and and a lot of the changes I don't think it's going to be a huge paradigm shift on how we do the report cards. I think a lot of it's going to be is how do we take what we've collected from our students and put it on the report card. I think that's going to be the biggest thing. But yeah, it shouldn't be too much of a problem getting them on the report card.
And CUME folders, you all ready to go back to work and do your CUMEs, right? Probably not. I know Union is talking with Ed Services about what the requirements are going to be for CUMEs. I've always said to Dan, I said if we were smart enough and rich enough to fund it, CUMEs would become electronic, and I'd sell that service to every school district in the United States. We'd been rich already.
How awesome would that be? Hit a button, CUMEs are done.
Yeah, that would be totally awesome. And another thing to think about, especially since you're doing those ELD report cards, that video, again, is at the homepage or on the homepage of palmdalesd.org/edtech on how to fill out the ELD, SLD report cards. But there is a little problem in that they can't be batch printed by your secretary. And so if any of you are familiar with how to print to PDF, you would actually have to do this one at a time. Put them in a file, save your secretary a lot of time and headache, and send them the file with all the PDFs would be great. If you need any more help with that, contact Dan or myself or one of the other coaches, Jerry or Melissa, and we can help you on how to print to PDF and save it as a file. Has a lot of other great uses for it as well.
Yeah, and I can't wait to really share what you guys have been doing, because a lot of these things that you guys have been doing in the classroom have been really cool. So I think it's time we get started and start talking to some people.
Well, one of the things is that people have depended on us as coaches for a lot of the things to get them started with. But believe it or not, we actually learned quite a bit from listening to kids and listening to teachers and what they do, because you have been getting quite creative, I'm sure. So I guess why don't we start it off and let's hear from you guys. What have been some of your successes the last 8 weeks?
All right, Sylvia, you're up.
Creating the Zoom meetings. I've never done that before, and I've done at least 20 Zoom meetings, conducting the IEPs with the team.
How's that worked out?
That's worked out awesome. Really good. Yeah.
So when you do that, you have one person taking notes and SACE and other people?
Me. That would be me. The parent would be on the phone, and the rest of the team would be in the Zoom meetings. I haven't gotten any parent on the Zoom meetings, just on the phone.
Awesomeness.
Agenda, and it's been very organized. I haven't really lost anyone, while in the meeting. For someone that has never used Zoom meetings before, I thought that was something that successful.
What do you see as the best part about having them on the Zoom meetings?
That everybody's there, listening in, focused, as opposed to having it in the room with a, Perithian board, everybody looking at the same thing.
Well, what's interesting to me about that is that looking to the future, there's no reason then why a parent who couldn't make it to a meeting at the school, they could do it through a Zoom meeting at their lunchtime at work or wherever they are. Maybe they have childcare issues and they're at home. They can always come in via Zoom now and have those meetings and be present for their students' IEPs.
That's true. A lot of them can't connect. They don't know how to download the app. So I think they would benefit from support, maybe I see parents logging in to find out how to do a Zoom, maybe do like a meeting over the phone, and they have their equipment ready, whatever device they're going to use to upload the Zoom, and maybe we can take them step by step. That's what I see in the future. A lot of these parents have not connected because they don't know how to download the app.
So maybe some parent training somewhere down the line. Maybe that's something we've learned from this, is that, we need to look not just to our students, but how to train up some of our parents to do some basic tech work. Ms. Mohammed Kamari, what have you been successful at?
Everyone's tech skills have increased. I mean, my students' tech skills have increased. My tech skills have increased. My parents' tech skills have increased. Everyone has just gone up as far as their technology skills are concerned. And I have always dreamed of having a paperless classroom, somewhat 90% paperless classroom. And I was never able to do that because everybody kept just shoving papers to me in the classroom and worksheets and things. So for me, it's been really a joy because I see that I can do things, 90% of the work without paper.
Yeah, necessity is the mother of invention, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I really had a chance to work on programs that I have been always wanting to have time to work on, such as Seesaw, and put assignments in Seesaw and Edpuzzle, and I'm really loving it. And I discovered just a couple of days ago, I don't know if everybody knew about this and I was the last one, but there's a whiteboard program that my kids I was able to push out a whiteboard to them, and they're able to work on that whiteboard, and I can see them working in real time, working out their math problem or what have you on that whiteboard. And I was like so excited about that. That has been amazing.
You're going to leave us in the dark. What was the app?
Yeah.
It's called whiteboard.fi. That's the website or whatever. It's whiteboard.fi. And it's awesome. It's very simplistic. You just simply start a whiteboard and you send the link, share the link in maybe Google Classroom with your kids. They click on that link, it puts them right in the whiteboard, and you can push out a problem to them, and it's amazing. I really like it, and it's free.
I've got two questions. I guess it's asked as one. What has been the biggest problem you've had so far? And then what has been the biggest benefit that you've seen so far?
The biggest problem I had at the very beginning, honestly, was just getting myself set up because everything came so fast. And it's like, okay, let's set up your space at home, and let's, make sure you have the equipment that you need, because we only had iPads. And what I thought was a problem was, okay, Palmdale, you're asking me to be online with an iPad with all of my 33 kids. And I just didn't think that was going to work out. So I did have my Mac computer, and I purchased an external monitor because I need to be able to see everything. And so once I used my Mac and my external monitor and got set up, I was good. But initially, I think it was just for most of us was, how do we do this? How do we get all of our kids on here and, do it pretty quickly? So
I'm really
and
curious.
The benefit, like I said, was just being able to have the time to nurture my technology skills, because I love using tech. And the problem was we never had time to learn it. It's like, here's a program, but we never had time to be able to spend time with the program, and for us to be able to spend time with you all, the experts. We never had that. We had you every now and then here and there. So having you more was awesome, has been awesome, because we have learned a lot.
I'm curious on a couple things on how many teachers upgraded their technology at home. They went out and bought new computers. They called their internet provider and got better connections. And I bet you there's quite a bit, because, as you learned, doing something from an iPad. iPads are great and they have their purposes, but they're not the end all and the perfect tool for the job. We've talked about using those tools before that are right for the job.
Kamari, one more question for you. So let's say in August we come back to normal. How do you see your pedagogy changing from here on out? And I know you talked about going almost paperless. But how do you think it's going to change your teaching aside from the papers and handouts and all that?
I would personally love to continue things the way they are. I love technology. Like I said, I love using it. My kids love using it. They're more engaged. I don't see myself going back to paper. Some things, paper has its place, I think we've had that conversation. I don't know that we would all want to be 100%, because third graders have to learn how to write in cursive, and things like that. So paper has its place in the world. But I personally would love to continue with my Seesaw. The kids love it. They're engaged. The assignments are engaging. It's easy for me to grade it. So I would love to continue with it.
Yeah, I know
Definitely.
A coach who can help you out with that, by the way.
Absolutely. I'm counting on it.
So let's open that up. There should be some more hands going up. And again, we're just having that discussion. What have been your challenges, your successes? What do you see changing as you reflect on your pedagogy? That's probably the most important question to me, is when you think about it, have you reflected on your pedagogy, your practices, and what changes do you see yourself making as the school year starts, whether we are in a classroom or whether we are virtually in a classroom?
All right, I see Joe's got her hand up. Go ahead, Joe.
Okay. For me, and I see Steve, he's over at Apatio. You're there a lot. So I'm not the guru in technology, but I'm mediocre. So Zoom was like a to me at first. I'm becoming more acquainted with it, and I'm enjoying it. I found my flaws to help me enjoy. I remember my first day in Zoom was a Friday. The students were like all over the place, enjoying themselves, looking at me for the first time, and enjoying seeing their other class. So that was a Friday. But that weekend, I had to study and work a plan out how we can get back organized in the classroom. Because if I don't have anything going on in my classroom, it is management. And that's how we learn. We have to manage. So that's what I had to think of. And I got that management together Monday morning. I sent a message out, because we work through Class Dojo and Google Classroom. So I did send a message out, and I have the parents working with me as well, that I need their support so we can learn. Once I got the students' attention, then the next step, I had to begin my planning because it's just like in the classroom. And for a minute to me, Zoom was like, hi, how are you doing? What's a good thing? And, oh no, we have to learn. And so lessons became a big instrument. And with my team, we had assignments going on. And I love that we have new programs. So every week, the students, we already post a new assignment. The parents are becoming more familiar with Google Classroom, how to get involved in the links. But we're doing the read works. Say maybe Fridays, we're in that draw hub. They can share. We're doing school first and other assignments. Even Zern and Embark Online is a part of their Eureka book. So we try to keep them engaged with the lessons they were already learning before the shutdown.
That's awesome.
I'm enjoying, I'm very acquainted now with Zoom, and I look forward to it. Today, the PE coach took over Zoom, and we did not have to Zoom today. And you know what? I pretty much missed it in a sense, but it's given me a chance to continue planning and to get my grades out. I am one that did not complete the progress reports. So I'm just about done now. I was in Sacramento at the time. We had a convention during this social distancing. And so I was left in Sacramento. I hadn't seen my class a week before the closure. But all that to say is that I am enjoying my students. I give them the agenda that we are going to work with in Zoom. The challenge was, how do I work with my students in Zoom at the, like if it's a reading, a reading sample, sometimes it's the audio that knocks it off. Sometimes the student screens freeze up and I can't continue. I have to pop on another student. So that could be a challenge with me. It is just tech. It is not a problem with my screen or whatever. It's tech when we freeze out or the audio freezes. Even on a host, you all will freeze at some point.
I take a couple of things from what you're saying. One is that, you look at things like technology freezing. It's just another one of those things that require you to make those decisions of how you deliver instruction when something happens. And things happen in the classroom, whether you're using technology or not, that require us to rethink about how we present things to the kids. There might be some distractions. There might be an incident in the classroom, and we make those management decisions real quick. I also hear a couple other things from this conversation. One is that it takes a lot of planning, the old saying, a failure to plan is a plan for failure.
That's
and
right.
then I also heard Kamari say earlier about the time that, she loves having the time to put in. And I've been practically preaching for the last 5 years that the time you put in learning how to use the technology now will pay off huge down the line. Time spent up front is well spent time, because you end up definitely freeing yourself from a lot of work later on, whether it's taking papers home, shuffling through papers, you name it. The sky's the limit, where tech becomes a tool to help you become more efficient and improve your pedagogy when you think about that. The people who don't think about their practice, the technology sort of amplifies whether it was being good or bad at that point. And you have to be able to reflect on it and say, you know what? I need to change my practice a little bit because I'm not seeing the results that I want. And so the technology sometimes amplifies those weaknesses we have within our practice. And the goal is then to make those improvements.
Planning, the students are engaged. Learning is coming about still in Zoom. Compliments from the parents. My parents are involved, engaged in whatever we're doing. So I'm very comfortable with it. And if we have to extend Zoom, that is a thumbs up for me. I'm beginning to appreciate it and enjoy it. So it's, it may be a second way of learning. We don't know if it's going to be extended or not, but I have no problem with it. I am enjoying it, and it's still more that I need to learn.
All right. So let's keep this open here. I'd like to hear from some more out there about what it is that you have been successful, what you still find challenging. Lyle, go ahead.
Hey, how you guys? Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
We can. You're on, yeah.
All right, awesome. Just trying to go back to the original question. Some things that worked well. I started Zoom meetings with my students kind of pretty much right away. And I was, fairly successful with that. Some lessons learned right away that sometimes my connectivity wasn't good. What I learned was go down to check my connection with my server and see if it was strong or weak. And sometimes I actually had to move to where my server was and I got a strong signal. So those are sometimes things that I learned. And I actually started off with using my wife's laptop, and there were some things on hers that I wasn't familiar with. So I had some growing pains with that, then using the iPad. Then eventually they opened up the Chromebooks for teachers as well, and that worked out really well. I started doing a little bit better then because, something that I learned from my IT folks at my school, that the connectivity between the Chromebooks, it's already built in that it knows how to tie into our server. So the connectivity and just going right into the class link and finding my links worked out really well there. Some challenges were just them adding on things like, recently, I know you guys know, they said, well, we have to, I don't know if the middle school teachers have to do, but we have to do 15 minutes of Imagine Learning. And that was something that, we had to add on, and then they kept adding things on week by week. So those made more challenges for us to learn new apps, new technology. So that was always a challenge. I'm looking forward to doing more of this technology and, like Kamari was saying, paperless applications. As you know, we got a new fifth grade curriculum for history, the TCI function. And I took it upon myself. I said, I'm pretty savvy with technology, whatever. So I'm just said, I'm going to put the textbooks aside, and I'm just going to go straight with using the technology of history books with the TCI. And I kind of gone on with that. I started that, and it worked really well. Didn't use it. I didn't use the history books when I do my distance learning class, because I noticed when I was going through it with my students, the level of the comprehension that they was asking was something that they could not do, I think, self-paced by themselves. But, I could use that more in the classroom if I was able to teach them. But only thing that I'm really not able to teach using just paperless is math. Even the language arts, I went into, you can do benchmark. I figured out how to go in there. You can put notes off to the side. You click on it, you can put notes off to the side. So I could do all my language arts curriculum using Benchmark Universe. And I just give them a weekly test. So I do language arts. I use the vocabulary to do my math, and also do history and science.
So let me ask you a question then. So you're doing all this stuff that's new, that's been added on. Is it gonna change what you do in your classroom?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of ideas I have in mind, because one of the things I'm also recording, using application to record, whether it's Screencastify or using Google Meet. I'm doing recordings, and by doing the recordings, I'm looking at my recordings before I send it out, and I'm able to check my, pedagogy and see what things I'm making mistakes on, how I'm emphasizing things. So by doing that, I am able to see the way I'm demonstrating a lesson, And I may in the future, let's just say if it's a pretty much simple lesson, I may do my recording, and then instead of teaching and then checking on my work, I can have the recording going. Then I could go around and check and see how they're getting it. So it's like if I do the recording, almost like I have an assistant. So I can do my recording, my students watch the recording, and then I could be my assistant, go around and check them as they're doing the work. That's something I'm thinking about doing.
Well, what we call that in our ed tech world is either a flipped classroom or a blended classroom, where it's a little bit online and a little bit live. If you flip your classroom, you could actually record that lesson, give it to the kids the night before for them to watch and work through some of the problems. And then when you come back into class, you answer the questions and solve the problems that they had with it, and then move on. And you've saved yourself even more time in the classroom. So you're on your way to actually a big concept. The other thing I took away from that was this idea that in the TCI, that the level of comprehension and the questions, they weren't ready, which really sort of highlights for me the idea that we really need to ask those higher level questions in our classroom to get kids ready to always be able to wrangle with those higher level issues and problems, and to be able to not just speak it, but to reason at a higher level as well, so that they aren't caught cold out here in virtual land all of a sudden on their own.
What I appreciated about a lot of the stuff that you said was that you weren't afraid to try stuff. You talked about using your wife's laptop, and then that didn't really work for you. So then you got the Chromebook, and everything was good from then. Really being able to adapt. We ask our kids to adapt all the time, and you had no choice but to figure out a way to work for yourself, and you found a way to adapt. That to me was awesome.
A couple things that I think about when we talk about this is, and we're 8 weeks in, and Dan will tell you this too, is that the amount of questions that we are fielding are a whole lot less, where we went from working 12-hour days at the beginning of all of this to, boy, I wish somebody would bother me. Well, no kidding. But so then I become a little fearful that people are going to say, well, this is the status quo. I figured something out and I'm just going to live with it, rather than to keep having a growth mindset and saying, you know what, maybe there's other ways to do this. Maybe there's a way to up the level of the use of Google Classroom, or how we deliver material to the kids and how kids respond. Because sometimes, we find something that worked and then we stick with it, even if it's not really a higher level kind of problem or solution that the kids end up using. So I want to encourage everybody then to say, okay, I've got this, but I bet you there's more. How do I level this up? How do I level up?
I'm going to unmute Jackie, just because I know she's.
Thank you.
Awesome.
I was trying to unmute myself and it wouldn't.
That's okay. That's all right.
We do that on purpose.
Yeah.
You don't want to hear me speak anymore? I haven't obviously used it as much as everyone else, Zoom, but I've learned a lot, because a couple of times now that I'm using it more when I set up meetings, I'm learning things like the weight room. I have that set automatically on my computer, but some people come through automatically and some people go straight to the weight room. So I must not have it set correctly, or maybe I'm not setting up the meetings correctly, or maybe it's not just me. I'm not sure. But like Joanne Carr, my internet at my house goes in and out. So my screen freezes, whether I'm a host or a participant in these Zoom meetings. But I've learned to just sit and wait, and it comes back on. It just takes a little while. I know some people really, not with the students necessarily, but in meetings with adults, some of the adults want us all to have our video on, but I noticed that makes this freezing worse for me, at least, without the great internet connection. So if I can sit at a meeting without my video on, it kind of helps with my end, but I I know that that's an issue with some adults. They want to see everybody who's on the meeting.
So besides all of the technical difficulties, what and we talk of then about good things, successes. What are you seeing in general in education that is still a challenge for teachers, and some of the things that they've grabbed hold of and have done a great job with?
Well, I think all of our teachers, or most of our teachers in general, have done a great job with just jumping in and doing what they needed to do to get as much information out to the students and parents as possible. Learning the technology that first week, like you said, our tech people were working 12 hours a day, but most of our members were working 12 hours a day as well, trying to learn these things and trying to get lessons together that could be used online. So I see that we are very adaptable. Maybe that's not the right word, but many of our teachers, they hopped right in. And it sounds like some of them have been able to lessen their loads as they've gotten used to the technology or learned where they need everything. So that's a really good thing.
Teachers move from survival mode into actual teaching mode, which is
nice.
Yes.
And like you said, I hope that we can continue, whether we go back to a school site or if we continue online learning, that we all continue becoming better at this and maybe pushing ourselves further and learning other different platforms to use or that are better with certain students. I think Kamari was talking about the whiteboard, and Dan and you asked her more about that. That sounds like a really good program too to use. So just making sure that we don't just settle in and get used to what we're used to, but trying to go farther.
Technology doesn't drive the instruction. The instruction determines, and the outcomes you want determine the technology. It's not the other way around. So technology should never be the driver of our instruction and kids' learning. It's just the tool that helps us do that, and in some cases in a great way when used properly.
I know, and some teachers like Steve and Dan have been doing this for a long time, and even teaching all of us. But maybe some of our teachers, when we get to go back to sites and do PDs, maybe some of them can do some of the PDs with you guys and co-host, because they might be using different technologies that they found on their own without PDs through the district.
Which we would love, because it really doesn't come down to the four of us, whether or not we can do a PD or not. The teachers are the ones in the classrooms. The teachers are the ones who try it out, get the feedback from the kids directly, instantly. We don't generally get the time or the ability to really do any of that. So yeah, we would love to have teachers with us during Tech Tuesdays and doing a lot of the presentations.
Steve, I noticed even though you have the green screen, it looks like you have some kind of fancy microphone.
Yeah, this is actually a part of a podcast studio that called a Roadcaster. And it is a fancy microphone, makes my voice sound better. And so it's interesting, Dan and I, we talk about these podcasts, and we started doing this as a creative outlet for us. And, this is something that can be easily done. You don't need a fancy mixing board. But what if, you started having those projects with kids where they are looking at their history and they actually have to analyze and ask questions and talk about the things they've learned. You could be talking about colonial America and talk about, Dan, why did these people actually come over here to America? What was their reasons? And the kids could actually put it in conversation piece, because they actually now can share and know the content, which is really interesting. So there's a lot of things you can do with this kind of recording business.
And it's a lot of fun.
It's that too.
Yeah. All right. Who we haven't heard from is Yeneth. I'm going to unmute Yeneth.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm actually not a teacher. I'm a school nurse, so I don't have as much of experience with Zoom, but I guess the positive thing about this, I can tell you from a parent's perspective, is my son goes to Dos Caminos, and his teachers have been excellent, keeping us updated on Classroom Google and slides, and it's been very interactive. I do enjoy that aspect of it, but I also miss being in school and missing and touching my students. So it's been a roller coaster for all of us.
So on the parent side, I'm going to have you put your parent hat on for a second. What has been the greatest challenge with doing your nursing with Palmdale School District, and then at the same time having your son with Dos Caminos?
It's a time management. I mean, it is really hard working from home and having 3 kids and trying to teach them. And I don't want to take anything from the teachers because they're doing so much, but it's a lot more responsibility involved now, with our portion. And I think at the beginning it was harder too, because I'm not very tech savvy. So finding out what to do and where to go, most challenging part. But I think now it's getting a lot better. And then they also did homework packets. So you have the option to do written, and then you also have online, and they're not making it mandatory. So I just really appreciate all that they're doing. I feel like they're really going above and beyond for us. Yeah. So shout out to Mrs. Montoya Green and Mrs. Ramirez.
One of the greatest benefits, I think, as a takeaway from this all, is that we are bringing parents back in much more than they have ever been, and making those connections at home, letting them know what's going on, where, to be honest, having taught for quite a few years, we kind of kept them to the side and said, no, we got you kids. Now it's more of a partnership. We need you parents to help us out. And I think the parents are realizing that they need to be involved much more as well. I hope that's a positive benefit from all of this.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, before I was a school nurse, I didn't really see how much teachers did. So when I became a school nurse, it really opened up my eyes, and I really have so much more respect for teachers because I really see how much that they do. And I think this is really kind of opening up for everyone else to see how much teachers really do. And, now parents are having to step in. And I think it really shows, just makes us appreciate them more.
Let's hope we can get our government to respect it too, and not hit us too hard.
Yes, that's so scary. I mean, and that is the scary thing, is the uncertainty, because we really don't know what next year is going to be like. I mean, school's going to start then, if it's going to start later, some students are going to start and some aren't. I mean, there's just so much uncertainty that, nobody knows what next year is going to look like. And that, I think, gives us all a little fear at the same time as well.
Well, let's hope it's over soon. Not school, but COVID-19.
Absolutely.
Go ahead, Lyle.
Hey, just when Giannis mentioned something about parents, it just kind of reminded me of something that I end up doing to getting my parents more involved. I communicate primarily with my students in Google Classroom, but my parents I communicate in Remind. One of the things to get the parents more involved in their students' work, what I was doing was I was actually sending up solutions to the problem sets or homework, if I assigned it, to the parents in Remind. So that way, the children wanted to see what the answers were and things of that nature. But they had to get it in Remind for the parents. So that kept the parents and the student engaged and showing the paid parents I want to get involved. I wouldn't send it in Google Classroom. I would send it in Remind to my parents.
All right. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
Jackie Hearn, you have your hand up.
Oh, I just Steve, I think you said something about the government doing the right thing. And I just wanted to remind you.
Well, I don't know. I don't know if I said do the right thing, because that's just a whole other debate.
Oh, sorry.
but I hope they support us, knowing that the education is super important.
And we can all call our representatives and let them know what we believe is important, and hopefully they will support us. Thank you.
We'd like to thank all of you for joining us today and sharing your thoughts, your practices, your concerns, your challenges. It's a whole lot easier than us planning something. That being said, there is a link at palmdalesd.org/edtech near our podcast that if you'd like to be a guest, there is a form to fill out. Click on that, fill it out, tell us what you want to talk about. Some of our future some of our future podcasts might deal with how do we increase the cognitive demand of lessons so that it's not just level 1, level 2 questioning. Kids are actually doing the heavy lifting more than the teacher. And possibly then also flipping the script, I like to call it, from the I do, we do, you do. What does that look like if we flip it backwards? And so that's some of the things that we'll do and talk about in future podcasts. And we would love for you, if you'd like to be a guest, again, palmdalesd.org/edtech. Scroll down the page. There is a link to our podcasts and a link to fill out the form.
You saw how easy it is. We had, up to 10 people up with us. And, we just want to talk to you guys. You guys are on the front lines. You guys are the ones doing everything that we suggest. We want to know, how's it going? It'd be great to hear from you.
That, Dan, I think it is time for us to say goodbye and end this podcast. I've got to go wash my hands.
I need to go socially distance myself from myself.